Hey, I hope you're as excited as I am to get beyond the details of the course and into the details of what we're supposed to be learning. So now we're about to dive into the very basics of how to use Python and being able to kind of make stuff with it. In fact, by the end of this module, it's going to be a week-long module, and by the end of the module, you'll be ready to be writing your own programs to go and extract data from the web. In fact, our final sort of project here is to go to Reddit and grab some comments and some posts from Reddit so that we can record them and make use of them. So throughout the videos and the exercises that we're going to be doing, you're going to get the very basics of how Reddit works in little tiny chunks, and then you're going to figure out how those chunks fit together into being able to produce a script that's useful to do some stuff. And then we'll, throughout the semester, kind of build on that foundational knowledge. Each of these units has a common set of pieces, right? So you'll see that there's a video in each one. This one's probably the shortest at 12 minutes. They run from about, they were generally in the 15-minute, 20-minute range. The very last one, I think, goes all the way to 30 minutes, but that's about how long they are. And in that, if you consider kind of the area we're covering in there, in that I kind of take you through a glance of what these things are, of how to kind of work through each of these pieces of what Python is. We're going to be using throughout Google Colab. You'll see that in the first video. And so I would really encourage you to start with a blank Colab screen each time, a brand new notebook each time you start up one of these sections. If you want, I am giving you access to my notebooks, the ones that I produced while I made the video. So that's kind of like being able to taste the demo stuff, right? Or something like that, or being able to see the slides if you're in a normal lecture course. So you can get access to those. You can even make a copy of them and play with them in various ways, and that's fine. But I would actually suggest you go in with a blank slate and try to make this stuff yourself. I think it's good muscle memory in some ways to be doing that yourself. And I would say that beyond kind of following along and doing it yourself, I would actually go and see if you could start to think about doing other stuff, like just poking at it. You've got this notebook. You won't break anything by doing this. You can always just erase things you've tried. But, if you had a point where you're like, oh, I wonder if this works, or I wonder if I could make it do something else. That is a good impulse. Follow that impulse. Go out and do weird stuff. The best way you can learn to do this stuff is by kind of taking those chances and figuring it out. You won't break anything. You can always just start over with a fresh notebook. But if you go in there and poke at it and try different things and see what works and what doesn't work, that is the ideal way to learn this stuff. Okay. So that's one piece here. In each one of these, you'll see that I've got a set of resources. I would encourage you to read these. They're good stuff. We'll be diving more deeply into Automate the Boring Stuff next week. But frankly, the official Python tutorial is a little dry, but it does get you to these pieces. These, which are in Real Python, are also really good, more in-depth pieces. In fact, that deep dive is the other option. And when we get to the end, you have kind of two levels at which you can hit the project. You can do the very basics, or you can kind of extend yourself and do something towards the more essential badge for this particular unit. And I would say, given that this is our first unit, I would be trying for that higher badge. If you are just trying for the lower kind of, I want to get through this with a minimum of fuss, then honestly, if you go through the videos, you're going to get most of what you need. You can always go through here kind of as resources and take resources, which is what it's called, and say, oh, I don't quite understand this, and you can kind of dive in a little bit more deeply. But if you're going to go for the essentials, and you really do need to read these and take notes on them and play with them, I would say especially the pieces that are in Real Python tend to hit a lot of depth. And I think that although I actually really like the Automate the Boring Stuff with Python as well, it doesn't maybe hit the same depth, but it does kind of explore these things in more breadth, maybe I should say, and gives you lots of different examples. So both of those are really good resources. I also like the Python for Social Science, which is kind of what we're doing here, because it really hammers on the pieces that are most important to the kinds of scripts we'll be writing. So I would say, kind of choose your own path. You can either go the easy tour guide route, but I would really encourage you to either play on your own or dive deeply, not just into these resources, but going out and looking for other stuff too. There's only a small caveat there, which is try to get more recent tutorials and things like that. There was it's not a completely different language or anything like that, but there's some small changes that happen from Python 2 to Python 3, and they may trip you up if you're looking at code examples or things like that. They're not huge. I still get tripped up because I'm used to using Python 2, even though the switch was a decade ago. But it might confuse you a little when you're starting out. So try to look for Python 3 things. I've chosen these resources because I really do think they're the best resources for doing this. But as I said at the very outset, there's books and other things there's lots of stuff out there for Python. So so you have lots to draw from if you don't want to use the things that I'm providing you here as well for depth. At the very end, there's a short self-test. This is like 3 or 4 questions where you can just kind of plug in and see what you got out of that video. When you come to the very end of the module, you'll have a real test, but it'll look very much like these self-tests. So it's a great way to kind of practice your skills and make sure that you got the core ideas out of the video you just watched. All right, great. So dive right in. I will see you over on our meeting space. If you have questions along the way, I hope you'll ask me or ask your classmates. And I look forward to going through this first module with you. Thanks.